Hey, welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're diving into a piece of grammar that's, well, it's not just some rule you have to memorize for a test. Think of it more like a power tool for your brain, a key that can unlock totally new ways of thinking, arguing, and even just being polite.
No, seriously, just take a second and think about that. What if a simple grammatical structure gave you the power to build alternate realities, to test out tough moral questions, and to flat out win arguments, all just by tweaking how you phrase something?
Well, believe it or not, that power is exactly what we're digging into today. This thing, the second conditional, it's the engine that powers all of our what ifs. It's how we talk about things that are hypothetical, unlikely, or completely imaginary. It is, quite literally, the grammar of pure possibility.
All right, so before we go off building these new worlds, we gotta look at the blueprint, right? We need to know how this tool actually works. And honestly, it's a lot more elegant and straightforward than you might think.
So here's the core of it. It's a simple two-part deal. You've got your if clause, which uses the past simple tense. Then you have the main clause, which uses would plus a verb. But here's the really cool part. That past tense, it's not actually about the past. It's this clever little trick in language to create what linguists call distance from right now, from reality. It's a signal that says, hey, we're stepping into a hypothetical world for a second.
And this is where it gets really fun because you can actually fine-tune your meaning. It's like there's a little certainty dial on this tool. Swapping out would for could or might is like turning that dial. Would gives you a pretty definite result inside your hypothetical world. Could suggests it's a possibility, maybe one of a few outcomes. And might, that cranks the speculation way up. This is how you control the very feel of your what-if scenario. Okay, time for a pro tip. If you're in a more formal setting, think academic papers or a big presentation, there's a special upgrade you can use, using were instead of was for everybody. If I were, if he were. Now, you'll hear if I was all the time in casual conversation, and that's totally fine. But using were is like putting on a suit and tie. It signals that you're being formal, precise, and that you really know your stuff. It just adds that extra emphasis that the situation is impossible. All right, so we've got the basics down. We know how the tool works. Now for the fun part. Let's see what we can build with it. Its first big job is helping us imagine and explore completely new realities, which is huge for things like ethics and creative thinking. So get this, philosophers have this whole framework called possible worlds theory to wrestle with huge ideas. And guess what the linguistic engine is that makes it all go? Yep, the second conditional. It lets us create these little mental laboratories where you can test out these big principles without all the messy complications of the real world clouding your judgment. And you've definitely heard of this one. It's the perfect example, the famous trolley problem. Just look at the grammar. If you pull the lever, one person would die. This isn't something that's actually happening. It's a hypothetical, a controlled experiment designed for one reason, to strip away everything else and make us face a really difficult moral choice. And that is the magic of it, right? By framing it this way, it drops you right into that mental lab. So what would you do? The grammar itself is what forces you to think it through.
Okay, so this tool isn't just for heavy philosophical thought. It can be used in a much more, well, strategic way. Let's look at how it becomes both a weapon and a shield in the world of debates, political speeches, and serious writing.
Now, in the world of politics, this structure is an absolute go-to. It's used to paint these incredibly vivid hypothetical pictures. You can create a terrifying vision of what would happen if the other guy wins, or an inspiring one of what would happen if you follow their plan. See how it works? The grammar gives them just enough distance. They're not making a solid promise or a factual prediction, but it's still powerful enough to shape our idea of what could be. Want to sound even more serious and formal? There's an advanced technique for that. It's called inversion. You actually drop the if and just flip the word order. Were the policy effective? It does the exact same thing, but it adds this weight, you know? It turns a casual what if into something that sounds way more profound and deliberate. And if you're writing a paper or an essay, this is absolutely essential for making a killer counterargument. It's a three-step dance. First, you use the second conditional to step into your opponent's shoes. Then, you acknowledge their point might have some logic. And finally, you use it again to pivot right back to your own thesis. It shows you've thought everything through, which makes your final point so much stronger. All right, let's bring this all back home, because the second conditional isn't just for philosophers and politicians. We use it every single day for diplomacy and, well, just being polite with each other. So there's this idea in linguistics called politeness theory. And basically it says that being too direct, making demands or telling someone they're wrong, can be a little confrontational. The second conditional is the perfect way around this. By framing something as a hypothetical, you create a little bit of social space. You're not giving an order, you're just kind of floating a possibility out there. It's so much softer and way more respectful.
And I bet you hear or even say things like this all the time without even thinking about it. Instead of saying, we have to review this, you soften it into a question. Instead of you're wrong, you create this little hypothetical bubble. Well, if I understood it correctly. It's the language of teamwork and diplomacy, and it's all running on that simple if, would structure.
Wow. So let's take a breath here. We've seen how this one little piece of grammar is a key to exploring ethics, to building arguments, and even to just communicating with a bit more grace. Let's tie it all together and really appreciate the superpower we've just unpacked. So, just to put it all into perspective, let's see where our guy, the second conditional, fits in with his family. You've got the zero conditional for scientific facts, 100% certain. The first is for real possibilities in the future. The third is for looking back on the past with regret. But the second, that's our sweet spot. It lives in that creative space of the unlikely, the imaginary, the hypothetical. This is the grammar of dreamers, of strategists, of philosophers. So, at the end of the day, it's pretty clear we've been talking about way more than just a grammar rule, right? The second conditional is the engine that drives speculation, persuasion, and diplomacy. It's a tool that literally helps us expand the way we think.
We started this whole thing by asking, what if your words could build new worlds? Well, now you've got the tool. You've got the blueprint. So the only question left is, what new reality are you going to build with it?